All right, we are back. dSIPRouter Weekly. I'm Mac Hendricks, and we have also,
Tyler Moore, the chief software wizard in the house. Welcome to stream, everybody.
yeah, man, it's been a rough week, man. So I'm glad we were able to catch up. You look good. You got some lighting. I'm traveling, so my lighting actually sucks. I tried to make it better before the stream, but it didn't work out. But you look good. Got your headphones on. I know you just got the brand
hmm
new boom mic, so we're trying to figure out, a little echo there, but we're moving on up.
Yeah, we're stepping up production a little bit. Got slowly but surely here. We're starting to make the stream a little bit higher quality production. Yeah,
Yeah,
I hope the audio sounded a little bit crisper. I figured out what a pop filter was.
good, good. And that's what you have on right now is the pop filter right there. Yeah,
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Got the pop filter, a little boom mic. Got a got a cheap little boom over here. You can kind of see it off to the side. Slowly starting to step up production.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes, and then next thing is get a bigger camera, get a better camera, so we'll get there.
hmm
So yeah, this week's been crazy. I think the biggest thing that I mean, you were dealing with obviously a lot of customer stuff as well. But like this week, I think we kind of forget how complicated Microsoft Teams is. And
hmm
I think that it's a good refresher for us that we had a customer this week that was trying to set up Microsoft Teams in kind of like a multi-tenant mode. So he's basically managing multiple tenants for multiple Microsoft tenants for multiple customers, and he wants to be able to offer the ability for them to, send calls inbound and outbound out of Microsoft Teams. And I don't know. I think we kind of agree that Microsoft has made this pretty complicated um, in what needs to happen in order for this to work. I mean, once you know, you know. But I
Yeah,
don't know, Tyler. This is the kind of the first time you probably dealt with this in a while. What's your thoughts?
yeah. I think they could have made it a lot easier. There's a lot of gotchas when you're setting it up. Even when we were going through it this week, we had a carrier domain that wasn't the root domain, and that was a big gotcha moment there when we figured that out. And then once you finally got that correct carrier domain, oh, it starts working. Then you got to make sure the signaling is happening correctly. It's not very intuitive when you're adding in SBCs either. And their options take a while to kick off, and then the UI takes a while to actually sync up. It's not very intuitive when you're setting it up. That's for sure. At least
Yes.
I think we have some pretty good documentation on it. I want to add a little bit more to that, and make it kind of put some of the lessons learned in there as well. Like, hey, you're probably gonna be waiting 15 minutes here for your options to start syncing up, right? Things like that.
Yeah, I think people get kind of freaked out when the options don't show up immediately. So they start thinking like,
hmm
"Oh, it's not working," and and of course, we tell them that it's going to take time to do it. I mean, we when we talked to him, we kind of told him after, we didn't tell him immediately, but when we got on the phone, we talked to him. I think for everybody, I think that's not everybody wants everything immediate now. So I think people have a hard time believing a lot of times that, oh, this is even though you click a button, the status is not going to be updated immediately. It may take 15 minutes for it to happen. I think that's just sometimes people find it unbelievable that that's the case. Um,
hmm
in Microsoft Defense, though, it is a pretty legacy system that they have underneath, which is really the old Skype slash Links system underneath that they're really this kind of layered Microsoft Teams on top of. So they have a lot of legacy debt. So that infrastructure takes a while. to propagate through everything. And as you probably know, or if you don't, for those out there, like everything's in some type of active directory. Like everything's in a directory. Uh, and it has thousands. Like I'm being facetious, but it has tons of options whenever you look at any of the stuff. So it gets a little complicated. So I figure I'll just share a little bit here about what we do around this, and we'll just talk through it and just give everybody kind of a recap of what we actually do.
Sure, let's
Uh,
hear it.
Let me do a share screen real quickly. All right, so um, what we're talking about here is using dSIPRouter as a proxy, um, aka session border controller, for the Microsoft Teams infrastructure. So over to the right here, you got carriers. Maybe you have a old Avaya system. Maybe you have this asterisk box. Maybe you have a Fusion PBX box, and you want to be able to route traffic from these systems over to Microsoft Teams. And inside of Microsoft Teams, there's a concept of tenants. So these are typically, companies that are running Microsoft Teams inside of their organization, and that is considered a tenant. So DSIP router or D open source, better yet, because D open source is more of like our company and decent route as a product. D open source would be a tenant inside of Microsoft Teams, and what you and how you interface Microsoft Teams with these your carriers and these other systems over here is through a concept and a mechanism that they have there called direct routing. Okay. And so what happens is that inside a DSIP router, you will be configuring it up to route traffic to a tenant inside of the Microsoft Teams environment. DSIP router could be used by multiple of your customers, as long as you have a wildcard certificate. This is where the issue comes typically because Microsoft is expecting the wildcard certificates. Depending how you name your domain, it wants to be whatever the base domain you define inside of Microsoft that you're gonna use to service up DSIP router on. And to be able to communicate with multiple tenants, that needs to be the base domain, and I'll show that in a second here. But I just wanted to kind of overlay like we'll kind of give an overview of what we're talking about here when you hear us say decent router supports Microsoft Teams. Tyler, do you want to add anything here, or did I do an okay job?
No, that's great. I think something that we can add is what the benefit is here to being able to swap out your carriers when using MS Teams.
Yeah, you're right. I did miss. I kind of went right into it. So yeah, so what Tyler's talking about is that you don't necessarily need to use DSIP router with Microsoft Teams, unless you are not happy with the Microsoft Teams calling plans, which they do. So Microsoft Teams can act as a carrier. You can buy phone numbers from Microsoft Teams, and those will work flawlessly. But usually, what happens is that people who've had you know phone infrastructure for a while, they already have a carrier that they use, they love, they understand, and they've already have a contract with them, either as an annual contract, or they have negotiated terms for month to month, or maybe they're paying for use. But and on top of that, all of their DIDs are already with that carrier, so they don't have any interest in trying to port that to Microsoft, which they could, but a lot of the organizations we deal with, they don't want to do that. So they rather use something like dSIPRouter, which gives them the best of both worlds. allows them to use their old legacy DIDs, and also communicate with kind of the new world, which is the Microsoft Teams, which a lot of business users has fell in love with. So that means you can be able to place phone calls out from your Microsoft Teams client through this architecture that we're showing here. And likewise, you'll be able to receive inbound calls from your carrier. And as I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be a quote unquote like FCC regulated carrier. It could be maybe you have an Avaya phone system that's sitting in a data center that's used by maybe a certain set of users in the organization, and you just want to make sure that those people can communicate with maybe the sales operations team that is using the new Microsoft Teams um, infrastructure for their organization. So it's just a way to integrate the two together.
Spot
Um,
on. Yeah, I think
yeah,
IVR is another great use case there. And any of your like conferencing or your PBX media that your media features that you want to bring to your customers, you can kind of port that over to MS Teams as well. It's enabling you to port all of those things right over.
yeah, yep, absolutely. So real quick, I'll hit this and I'll go to the kind of domain stuff. But um, so what could happen is that you could put dSIPRouter in kind of a failover configuration where there's two instances of dSIPRouter. They're sharing and domain name. They're sharing an IP address, and only the second one comes alive when there's a failure. So that's kind of one approach that you can do for failover. But there's a couple other ones like Microsoft by default allow you to have multiple session border controllers um, enabled. So you could say, and this is specifically for outbound traffic. Let's say this for outbound because let's look at it from outbound and inbound. Outbound from Microsoft Teams, you could have, two of these decent router instances, and it's going to just it'll try the first one. If that one is not available, it'll go on to the second one. So that's one way. Another way of doing failover or HA type of capability with dSIPRouter. Now the inbound gets a little tricky because it depends on if you're, obviously if you have DIDs with that carry with a carrier, you could set it up so that it'll try the first, dSIPRouter instance in this picture, and if that one for some reason fail, it can try the second, right? So that way, in either case, either if one's failed or not, you'll still be getting the inbound call into Microsoft Teams. So there's kind of a few different ways. I just named two. There's probably one other way that you can kind of do failover for this, but um, you just got to pick the solution that works best for you. I like typically I don't want a lot of moving pieces, so um, if I could leverage um, Microsoft's ability to call out to two different decent router instances, that would be great. The only thing is that as many who use dSIP router knows that by default um, it's all one complete system. The database and everything is on the one server. So you would need to either have a central DB database that both servers point to. That way, it maintains all the configuration, or you'll need to set up some type of master replication from a database level, which we've done before. But anyway, those are kind of the couple of ways that you could set this up. It all depends on the use case scenario.
I got a question there, Mac. So
Sure.
on the failover here, are those supposed to be the same FQDN or are those supposed to be different SBCs in your direct routing plan?
So this first picture here is showing it as a like using um, pacemaker. as basically you're advertising SBC1 um, on a virtual IP.
Hmm.
So if one of them fails, the other one picks back up. So that's the scenario I'm showing. And then I kind of went on and talked about the other ones where you could have SBC1 and SBC2, and kind of what this picture is kind of representing is that you have multiple SBCs enrolled for the purpose of failover in geolocation regions.
Ah, okay. Yeah, multiple options there. Interesting.
Yeah. I probably need to probably do like architecture one, architecture two, so that it becomes more clear of what that. So I'll take that as a note and I'll add that in.
Great.
Um, so these are just we don't need to go through these. These are just questions around like this common questions when we had to answer these for people before. I want to pop over to my Microsoft Teams here. Actually, there's there's I think the problem here is I shared my screen. You should now be looking at the Microsoft 365 Admin Center now.
Yep.
If you're looking at that, the issue here is that there's like a few different places where things have to be set up and changed, right? So I think that gets people a little confusing. So there's really two management interfaces that one needs to care about. One is admin.microsoft.com, and the other one is teams admin.teams.microsoft.com. So you have again admin.microsoft.com, and then you have admin.teams.microsoft.com. And the first one, the admin.microsoft.com, this is where you actually define the domains in which traffic is going to be coming inbound to your Microsoft Teams tenant. So there's different ways that you can set this up. If you're an individual company and you don't plan to have like some company manage your direct routing configuration and you're going to do it yourself, then whatever domains that you have associated with your Microsoft Teams tenant will work without a problem. You don't need to do anything else. But if you plan to be a kind of a provider of Microsoft um, Teams type of direct routing or provide that service to a bunch of customers, then you need to do something extra, and that something extra is you need to. And I think I may have this in another slide deck. I'm not sure because it'll be better to visualize it. But for us, we have for our just so for us, we got dSIPRouter.net, and that's really where our demo systems live, right? So demo.dSIPRouter.net, this is where our demo systems live. So if I want to provide Microsoft Teams or direct routing through that domain, so let's just say I want to be able to say that any calls coming from Microsoft in our tenant, any calls coming from Microsoft Teams, I can set it up so that it sends the calls to this demo box here, and then it route it off to wherever we have it set up. But if again, if I want to be a more of a carrier or service provider, I don't know, service provider is probably the better way of saying it. I need to do a couple of things. One, I need to have the ability to add my subdomain to all of my customers' tenants. So, for example, we have a subdomain called customers.dsiprouter.net, and this is here to simulate how to simulate this whole um, carrier slash tenant relationship. Um, so, and I hate using the word carrier because that makes it seem like that you're like a phone carrier, which in a lot of cases that is what a lot of them are, but you don't have to be. But just think of it as a way of defining, uh, you know, someone, a service provider that's managing your um, your direct routing environment. So just
Yeah,
maybe I don't.
multiple tenants, right?
Yeah, with multiple tenants. I'm just trying to figure out the best way to use it so not confusing people, but it is confusing. And probably a diagram probably does speak words here. I think I have one. I just gotta find it. But for the most part here, what I'm saying here is that if you're going to service multiple tenants, you need to have a subdomain that can be defined inside of your Microsoft Teams account, not your customers. Um, it will be, I guess, you will have a domain name that you're going to add to it, but you need to have a subdomain in your Microsoft Teams account. This is very important. You need, as if you are the service provider, multi-tenant service provider for direct routing, you need to one have a Microsoft Teams tenant account, have a proper license, and you need to have a subdomain that you're going to use the route traffic to your individual customers' Microsoft Teams tenant account. So in this case, ours is customers.dSIPRouter.net.
Yeah, so that's like your service provider domain. And then like you'll have
Mhm.
basically off of that, you're going to have subdomains that you hand out to your tenants, right?
Yeah. So it'll
That,
be yeah, and I guess I don't. I guess it's a subdomain, or you want to just call it a domain, because it's going to be like in this case, it would be like sbc1.customers.dSIProuter.net, or the name of the customer. Let's just make up a name of a customer. Let's just say um, Jungle Juice. I don't know. Jungle Juice is a made up fictitious coffee shop that's known across the U.S. that has multiple locations, and they have phones everywhere, and they want to use Microsoft Teams, but they have an existing carrier. So it'd be Jungle Juice, right? Dot customers dot dSIProuter.net would be the domain that would be added to their Microsoft Teams tenant account.
yeah, you're giving out that domain. And then you can
Yeah,
give them multiple domains as well.
yeah, yep, yep. And so, and here goes what happens. So what happens, and I don't know why Microsoft decided to do it this way. It's really no reason why the I guess maybe it's just for validation. So you need to at least have one license um, in that particular service provider domain. I think the way you say it is great. A service provider domain. So even if you don't use Microsoft Teams, right, as for your company, if you're a service provider and you're doing this for multiple clients, even if you don't use Microsoft Teams, you need to have at least one valid license in a domain. So what happens is that when you send request over from dSIPRouter, it first looks at your subdomain and says customers.dSIProuter.net. Does that domain one exist? Something that we actually service. Two, do they actually have a valid Microsoft Teams tenant account with a valid license? And if so, it allows the traffic through. And then the second phase of that is then it says, where is it going? So then it looks at the fully, the rest of the domain name. So in this case, it will look at Jungle Juice dot customers dot dSIProuter.net and be like, where is that going? And it finds the tenant, and then that's how it actually routes traffic there. So again, I think they could have did this a couple of different ways, but this is the approach that they decided to do, and it sounds like to me is like they kind of retrofitted it, right? Maybe because they weren't planning to do this early on when the system was built early on for the links and all the other legacy systems. But anyway, that's
Hmm.
the gotcha. I think that got us this week because you just kind of forget about it when you don't when we don't necessarily, like, a lot of our customers come to us already set up already because they know how Microsoft Teams works. So sometimes for me and you, we forget that this is how it needs to happen. So I just wanted to kind of give a update. Oh, one last thing.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go over to share this tab. So this is Microsoft Teams. So now if I go over to voice, I go over to direct routing. Um, you know, you can see the SBCs that's here. I mean, I know we have a problem with our account in regards to like we want to get rid of these particular ones, and um, it's not letting us delete them. But this is where you would go and define your customers' domains. So in my case, in our case, actually, we have 4 servers here. They don't necessarily. We just have 4 servers in our domain just for testing, but typically your customer would have 1 or 2 of these depending on what deployment mechanism they specify. But yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to like at least talk through. Did I miss anything? I need to clarify anything because it's a lot.
No, yeah, there's definitely some gotchas there. And me and Mac went back through this with a customer this week. Um, the prefix routing, I don't think it's kind of standard. But then the policies are a little odd and how you set up users. So that just some of the ways they have it set up is a little unintuitive, I would say.
Yeah, I didn't even get into how users get set up. Maybe we'll do that at some other point. But yeah, that's a whole other thing. Of like how do you define users and how do you tie them through to a phone number,
Hmm.
and which is a little tricky as well. But we have the steps for that. When you buy the module, we send you the steps, um, so that's not as bad. But they are getting better. Like I know our account is a little screwed up, but like before I couldn't add an SBC without going to the command line. Now I can at least add one. Um,
Yeah,
via
that
the
was
via the
so annoying. Oh my god.
via the GUI. So I know our permissions are screwed up here, but we should be able to. But we'll get it fixed because I need to do some more testing myself. So anyway, I just wanted to like touch on that and stop sharing and go back to what we to the show and just kind of talk through that. So if people have additional questions, please ask the questions below in the chat. It's gonna be obviously we post on YouTube, so you can just ask from there. We can have a healthy conversation around that, and or ask us why we did certain things a certain way. It'll be helpful for us because we're just trying to learn how to get better and make things easier for y'all. So
Yeah, Mac, I just want to share as well. We have this all these steps that Mac was just showing and kind of explaining. We have that in our documentation under the Microsoft Teams direct routing section there. So if you get lost, just go ahead and check the documentation. And if you guys need any more explanation, updates on documentation, please let us know. We'll get that updated right away.
very good. Yeah, thank you for that, man. Thank you for that. So all right. So what else? What is going on in your brain this week? I know anything major that we should care about or we should be looking out for.
So not a whole lot that I can talk about. I've been really busy, 12 to 14 hours every day doing carrier carrier grade setup, working on some technologies with a patent. So I can't really share all of that. I do think we could, if we can either talk about it now or we can push it to the next stream. But I want to talk about the marketplace and like the vision for a marketplace in dSIPRouter that is not just us pushing out products or services that can connect with the product, but also other people putting their products on there. Think of free PBX marketplace or any other marketplace that you have, like uh, WordPress marketplace, where you
Right.
can put your own products up there as well.
No, I think that's a good one. I think we should definitely talk about that. I mean, because like for those who don't know, like we have a few different module frameworks. Like we have one when we did the LDAP integration. So if you want to be able to create, let's say, a database integration, so you wanted to go and log into DSET router using some database credentials, or using a user that's in the database. you can build a module for that. And we actually kind of have that kind of laid out. We just haven't really just did a good job laying it out in our documentation. But we want to get to the point where you can build modules, you can monetize those modules right on our marketplace. It's also a good way so that me and Tyler don't have to maintain all this stuff. So people got new ideas every day. And I think if we give them the ability to just like go build, people will go do that and they will incorporate it in. And I think if we have them participate in some type of marketplace where they get a large percentage of the money there, and we get a little small set of pennies, I think that will be a win for us.
Yeah, I I love the way that WordPress like built this, and it's just like this. It's a very simple concept. They're like, hey, let's host websites. Let's make it a little bit simpler, right? Super simple. Then they're like, okay, can we add the ability for other talented developers that may also have great ideas to add in their own code and products and services around this? So, but we're kind of like moving towards this. It's just a long term goal to get there because yeah, like you were saying, we started with a couple different frameworks and we're honing in on the way we want to do it. But now we have that
Right.
legacy code in there, you know, and building out the part of the issue, I'll be frank, is that building a plugin architecture in a non-compiled language or in like out in the open is a little tough because some of the code, if you're going to monetize it, is eventually going to have to be, you know, if it's a closed source project, you got to find a way to tie that in, right? Like pulling that code and plug that into the marketplace, or
Yep.
your marketplace downloads it, plugs it into the application. So you gotta be able to account for that and like the open source ones. Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
part of the issues that we're working through on that.
Yeah, and we have to have it. So we have the module has to have like multiple things. It has to support the ability, like if they need some like change, like they need to do like if they need to make changes to Camilio to support this module, it needs to be a way for those to get to put in. They need database changes. You need to be able to do that. If they need UI changes in order to support this new module, which in most cases you're going to need those, or to do it, we just need to have a process to do it. But we're working on it. We're getting it there. And I'm excited that we're gonna get it there because long time coming. I think we got a lot of energy and synergy around this product, helping people. This is a real need. People don't want to um, learn things anymore that they won't reuse over and over again, right? So because you think about it, like once you have dSIPRouter or Camilio set up, you really don't go back and touch it for the most part. But you really you know I don't think I think most people are like I don't want to touch Camilio. Like even if since even though Camilio is very resilient, I don't want to have to remember what I need to do every time that something breaks in Camilio. So they rather go up a level to a UI that we kind of can that they can use to extract them away from having to know everything about this thing. So I definitely think it's a good thing we're building. I just think we just got to hone in on the marketplace.
Yeah, I think like the huge benefit there is there's other talented people out there, right, that are building stuff, and why can't they also
Participate.
monetize and participate and get their products out there on the same platform? That's
Yeah, I think
that's the
this is gonna
key
be
right
great.
there.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be great, man. When we get it there, it's gonna be like, yes, we are there, and hopefully that opens up a lot of things. So,
Yeah.
all right, we are at the past, no, 30 minutes past the hour, or not 30 minutes past the hour, but 30 minutes on. We like to keep it kind of short and sweet. Um, if are you have anything else, Tyler, or are we good? And we'll come back next week and we'll talk through what you wanted to talk through,
No,
which
I'm
is
I'm good for this week. I think we went over a couple cool topics there. Microsoft Teams and going over the planning on the marketplace here. You got anything else you're interested in? Want to wrap up?
No, that's it, man. That's it. Everybody, thank you for joining us again. You can ask us comments, or send us emails, or join our Slack channel. We'll put
In
those
the description.
in the description below. All right, and if this information has helped you, please click the subscribe button and the like button, and that will hopefully uh, change how the YouTube algorithms view our content. So we really appreciate it. Thank you. So
All
talk
right.
to you soon.
See you guys next week.